In this video, we're going to do the basic disassembly, reassembly, parts identification, and some basic maintenance tips on the Tippmann A5. The only tool that you'll really be needing for this is going to be a 1/8 Allen wrench. This video is also going to be a two-part video. Our first video is just going to be on the disassembly of the A5 itself, and then our next video will be on the cyclone feed system of the A5. We're first going to start off by making sure that the marker's uncocked. One real easy way of doing this is just turning your safety off and pulling the trigger. As you can see, the bolt's not moving forward, so our gun's already uncocked. We'll go ahead and remove our 4 push pins. We'll remove our end cap, our guide pin, our drive spring. We'll go ahead and remove our lower grip frame. And then from there, you have your tombstone latch. You'll just go ahead and push that back and pull your tombstone out, the valve assembly. And we'll set that off to the side. Now from there, you're going to want to make sure that your velocity screw is flush with the power tube or just simply turned all the way in. That way it'll allow you to slide the internals out of the back end of the marker. So as you can see, our rear bolt insert came out, and then from there you usually give it a little shake and the internals will slide right out. Now not every single A5 is going to have it to where the internals just slip right out of the back end. If that is the case, what I usually do is take the 1/8 Allen wrench and just kind of loosen up the receiver screws. And you're just loosening them up, you're not taking them out. You just get them loose enough to where you can slide the whole assembly out of the back end of the marker. And it should be fairly easy to pull out once you have those removed. So here in this whole assembly, we have our, I'll try to get a closer shot here. We have our front bolt, our linkage arm that connects the front bolt to the rear bolt. We have our power tube, which is the black plastic piece that houses our valve assembly. Our valve assembly is on the inside of the power tube, which I can take out for you real quick. A really easy way of taking out your valve is just tapping the power tube on a hard surface, and it should just slide right out. Now, if it doesn't slide right out, as you can see, it's right there at the end of the power tube. What you can do is just take your 1/8 Allen wrench and just kind of stick it in through that rectangular window and just push the rest of the valve out. Most of the time you can just tap that power tube and the valve will just slip right out. And as you can see, this is our valve assembly. And I can even go ahead and disassemble it a little bit further than that. Go ahead and what we'll do is we'll push down on our valve plunger. And you can also take your 1/8 Allen wrench for this too and just pop the valve internals out. Sometimes the valve internals will just pop right out. Okay. Now from there, it's going to be kind of hard to see. If I get it at the right angle there, you can see that there's an O-ring sitting at the very bottom of the valve body. Then you have your valve washer right here, and you can see it's kind of like a almost shaped like a top hat. What you're going to do with that is just kind of flip that top hat upside down and drop it in there. And then it should sit right on top of that O-ring, and you can just kind of tap it just to get it to seat. Then from there, you have your valve plunger. Go ahead and drop that back in. You have your valve spring. Goes on top of the plunger. Then you have your valve washer, which goes on top of the spring. And then you have your O-ring, which goes on top of the washer. Then from there, the O-ring will actually seat down into the valve assembly. As you can see, that O-ring's not completely seated down into the valve assembly. So we'll go ahead, we'll get that seated back down just by kind of pushing it down in there using any kind of tool. You could use a screwdriver. In this case, I'm using the guide pin for the drive spring. And you're just going to get it seated down to where it's flush with the valve body. As you can see, there's no O-ring sticking out there. So you go ahead and put that back in there. Take your valve, go ahead and reinsert it into the power tube, and you're just going to tap it down, and as you can see, that just right there with that first tap, the valve slid right down into the power tube, no problems. Then from there, you're just going to go ahead and reinsert your front bolt. Make sure that you get this block here with a hole in it facing towards the front side of your power tube, and you'll also see that indexing notch there. Then you're going to go ahead and reconnect your linkage arm. Then here you have your rear bolt, you have your O-ring on the rear bolt. Real common maintenance is just to put a couple drops on that, just a couple drops of oil, just the oil that we provide in our accessory pack. And then from there you can just go ahead and slide your internals back into the marker. We'll kind of zoom out for that, and I want to show you what's inside the marker. As you can see, there's nothing inside there. The only thing that you have inside there is just your ball latch. And then there's a receiver O-ring, which is going to be kind of hard to see in there, but it's on the right hand side of the receiver. But that's all your internals. I mean, your internals, this is it right here. That's all you have. So there's really no reason to take apart the body halves of the gun. Everything just slides right out of the back end. I always leave the body halves intact. That way you don't get your ball latch backwards, you don't get your cocking handle spring and your drive spring mixed up. Everything comes apart, goes apart, and, just the way it should be. So we'll go ahead, we'll slide our internals back into the marker. And what you want to do, you want to be careful not to push on that valve using your bolt. Because when you push on that valve, you run the risk of popping all those internals that we just put in right back out. So usually once I get to this point and I can feel that there's some resistance there, I'll take my 1/8 Allen wrench and kind of stick it in through the window of the power tube and just kind of pull that whole assembly down. Now once you get to that point, you can actually take it and put it on the back end of the power tube and slide the power tube back into the marker. Now if you feel a lot of resistance there, you don't want to really push on the end of that power tube because you can put a dent in it. But as you can see, that slid in real easily. Then from there, we'll go ahead and we'll reinsert our tombstone. You can go ahead and put your push pin back in, hold your tombstone in place. Then from there we'll go ahead and we'll reinstall our grip frame. There's really no reason to take apart the trigger assembly or the grip frame. I mean, if you're doing basic maintenance on it, I mean, you can just simply wipe it down with a cloth, make sure you don't have any paint or anything on there. And then just reinstall it. Go ahead and we'll kind of snug those receiver bolts that we loosened up earlier, just so we can slide our grip frame back on. Go ahead and get our grip frame back on. Go ahead and put the one push pin on. And from there we have our bolt insert. Go ahead and drop that in there. And then in the back end of that bolt insert, you have a hole where your drive spring is going to insert. Then you have your guide pin, your end cap, and we have our push pins. Go ahead and get that push pin in. And that is just the basic disassembly, reassembly, parts identification, and some basic maintenance tips on the Tippmann A5.